Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Kicken. Thank you, the Big Book Compendium. My name is Cathy. I'm an alcoholic. It's lovely to see my friends and fellows here and anyone who I haven't yet met um, on this virtual platform. I'm just going to start my timer. Um, yeah, I was just kind of embracing someone singing before the meeting that everything's going to be okay, because quite frankly I'm a little nervous. Here there's many people in this room that I deeply, deeply appreciate and admire, and I hope I can do this step some justice, and I'll speak about my experience. I'll speak about what I was shown, and what the book of Alcoholics Anonymous tells us. And step 11, I always like to look at the short form of step 11, which is in the detailed steps of the summary. They're not detailed, they're the summary of the steps on page 59. And it says, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. And it was made very clear to me the word and. So it's prayer and meditation, these two vehicles, these two things I used to improve my conscious contact with the God of my understanding, the power of my understanding as I understand Him. And like, my understanding is quite finite. And that works. It's an ever going process, ongoing process for me. And I was thinking about this and I was reflecting on, really step two, this came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. How, you know, on page 55 in our book, it tells us about this beautiful paragraph that we are fooling ourselves, for deep down in every man, woman, and child is a fundamental idea of God that is obscured by these things. Um, but it's as much of a fact as we were. The great reality that is deep down within us, and in the last analysis, it is only there that He may be found. It was so with us. And it goes on in that page to talk about the consciousness of your belief is sure to come to you. And when I got to step 11, I had read this on page 55, and it was really, really warming to my heart. It was really warming because I had searched outside of myself. I had looked to other things. I was, I was obscured by the calamity, the pomp, the worship, the blocks inside of myself. And so this, in reading itself, gave me hope, and that's where I was, and that's where I needed to grow. And when I got to this step after doing the 4 through 9 process of clearing away the blocks inside of within myself, in the last analysis, after the last inventory, after the rest of those steps after it, 5 through 9, the great reality was found deep down inside of myself. And I think it's the greatest kind of promise when I look at the short form there, to see that, oh yeah, they were really right when they wrote that. And that is true for me today. And I love in Bill's story, it talks about in his personal experience about the conception, the power of his understanding when he had his spiritual experience, particularly on page 13. It talks about, just, I was to sit quietly when in doubt, asking only for direction and strength to meet my problems as He would have me. Never was I to pray for myself, except as my request bore my usefulness to others. Then only might I expect to receive, but that would be in great measure. And I always go back to that, because if it worked for Bill Wilson, it will surely work for me, and it's worked for the people in my life that are recovered alcoholics. So I'm going to do what the book tells me to do. I don't know another way. I only know this way, as outlined through the big book. So um back, to where step 11 is given as per directions of the book is at the bottom of page 85. And, we've just entered the world of the spirit, and it's been made very clear to me that when I enter the world of the spirit, I've just opened this door ever so slightly. I have got this development of this vital sixth sense, like I just read about on page 55, that they told me about, that now I'm starting to see it, experience it perhaps, but it's vital, it's life-giving, it's keeping me alive. And how I've just begun this way of living, step 10, step 11, and step 12. So I'm not going to be perfect at it. It's not about that. It's not about, I made the mistake of saying I have to master this. That's not what it's about. It's about a practice I do every single day. It's about a discipline. And, I was listening to a lovely speaker the other night, Scott L, and he was talking about the word discipline, and like we see discipline on page 88 about that word, and I really didn't like that word. I didn't comprehend it. I didn't understand it, because discipline to me felt like punishment. And a discipline is like the ability to learn. It's to learn through the power, what the power is teaching me, like to be a disciple, a discipline. And that's exactly what this step has brought me. And, I'm not going to try to read word for word, but I can't help not talking about the book of Alcoholics Anonymous and what was shown to me and what I do each and every day. And it talks about how on 86 that, better men than we are using it constantly. It works if I have the proper attitude and work at it. And yeah, isn't that true? Better men than Cathy is using it constantly. I think I use it a lot, but not really. But this word proper attitude, I looked that up, and attitude is my position towards something or somebody in order to take an action. So my attitude towards the power, toward doing this on these pages in 86 to 88, what is that? And like, it may sound very simple, but for me, it was very huge, because like I again had to learn that this is not a drudgery. My life actually depends on it. I must do it. It's a discipline, but my position to it, it's not a drudgery. And in that's helped me, so it wouldn't become, this kind of a thing I must do. It's actually life-giving. And really, that if I work it, it will work. If I don't, it won't. It's pretty straightforward and to the point. And that's what I was told. And it talks about this being able to be vague about this matter, and how we can make some definite and valuable suggestions. And they're going to give us definite and valuable suggestions here about prayer and about meditation. It's not another like it's not Buddhism, it's not any of those things. It's as per the directions in the big book. It's their prayer, it's their meditation. Now there's a paragraph on 87 where it tells us about that there are many helpful books. Go and join your religious denomination, keep doing that with this. So if there's any other forms of meditation outside of this, I can do that along with these lines in this book. And I am under no obligation that I can just do something else other than that, other than this. I do this with something else if I wish to do that something else. And I have no opinion on that. And the definite and valuable suggestions are as outlined in these pages as follows in 86 and 88. And the meditation that I was taught, the word meditation when the book was being wrote was, it was contemplative. It was mindful, contemplated. It was not sitting in the Zen position, which is great if I want to do that with this. And it starts us off at night, and it's broken up into 3 different prayer, and meditations. And the one we start at night is these questions. And the 7 questions we get to ask ourselves at night, it says, when I retire at night, I'm retiring from my 10th step, from watching all through my day, from asking the power to remove these parts that crop up in me and turning my thoughts to others. That's when I'm retiring. And like, I'll just share my personal experience with that. That is the last thing I do before I get into bed. It's the last practice I do. For someone else in a different circumstance with kids, that may be different. But that's what I'm retiring from. And I'm asking myself these 7 questions. And that in itself is a contemplative way of going back through my day and being mindful and seeing these things in myself that that perhaps wasn't addressed during the day, or perhaps that I didn't see, right? And it ends with a prayer. I'm not going to go through it all, but it ends with the prayer. So there is a prayer in it too. That after making my review, I asked God's forgiveness. And I was taught what, the word forgiveness was, because to me it was so out there. Like, I couldn't understand it, but what I was taught was it's for God, to give to God, to do for God. So what can I for God, give to God, to do for God at the end of my day? And then I'm asking what corrective measures should be taken. And it doesn't say it in the book here, but I'm going to share again my experiences. I handwrite these answers for me, so I can have more clarity basically for myself. And it's vital that I do this every single night. And just a couple of the questions that sometimes really I learn from are the questions like, one in particular is, was I thinking of what I could do for others, or what I could pack into the stream of life? And that can sometimes be the stream of life. Am I going with life rather than going against it? And yeah, it's definitely one that I get to grow from. And what I was taught as well, and what I've experienced with this step, is that this is my learning step. This is my learning. Like, I get to look at these things at night, to constructively review it, the day, to be mindful with the day that I had, to be honest with it, to learn from it, and not to beat myself up about it, not to be drifting into worry, remorse, or morbid reflection, because I can't be useful to anyone then. And that's really what the gig's about, isn't it? To be useful. And the corrective measures come, or sometimes they don't come to the next day, or they come when they come. And so that's the first one we get to put to bed. So I wake up in the morning afresh, and like, yesterday didn't exist, if that makes sense. I'm starting anew today. And in these 2 pages, excuse me, there is a lot of reference to the word, um, a lot of references, 7 I've seen, but who's counting, right? It's not a academic exercise in that. But I just want to point out that the 7 mentions 7 references to thought life, thinking, think. And I heard things when I came in here, I stay for my thinking, and that's not in the book. But boy, isn't that true? Boy, am I reminded of that. And if I'm not, my sponsor will remind me of that. This is all about my thought life. And a couple of pages back, I like to go back through the pages just to reference, because I don't really speak very well. The book has better words than me. But it talks to us about how, where is it? On page 52, it says, but in most fields, our generation has witnessed complete liberation of our thinking. And again, when I was at that point on page 52, I thought, okay, thinking, yeah, yeah, yeah. And on 55, it talks to us about, about how these people rose above their problems. They say that God made these things possible and we only smile. We'd seen spiritual release, but like to tell ourselves it wasn't so. Like I get to rise above my problems. It's all my thought life. It's all my thought life. And excuse me. So I'm thinking about my day that's behind me when I'm going to bed. And I'm going to bed and I'm getting up in the morning and I'm thinking about the day ahead, second meditation. And, it's so, there's loads of prayers in this. If I don't already have my own prayers up to this point, it's exactly like the title of the book, like, is prayer and meditation. In other words, what I'm trying to say is there is prayers in this, there is meditation, it's contemplative. I don't need to start trying to worry myself about that. There's so much material here, and the skill is to use it. The skill is to use it. So I'm thinking about this day ahead and I'm considering my plans for the day. And before I begin, before I even, start to put those plans in place, I have to ask God to direct my thinking, which is a prayer, and asking that it be divorced from self-pity, dishonest, or self-seeking motives. And until I really had, you know, cleared away the blocks inside of myself, I read this just like reading it. Yeah, that's a prayer. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I really, today, I know that that is a prayer, because when I wake up in the morning, I have to ask upon awakening, the first thing is to be divorced from these three things. And perhaps there's many other, as well as self-pity, dishonest, and self-seeking motives. And like, again, like I was taught, was like, it hasn't been my experience, but like my parents separated, divorced, like it was not carefree. It was painful. I mean, I guess for everyone, or for them in particular. So it's not going to be something that's very, very simple, nor is it possibly going to be just when I say the prayer that it's gone. I have to ask for it to be divorced from these things. And under these conditions, then I can employ my mental faculties. That's the condition I can apply my mental faculties. And quite frankly, I may have to ask for these things to be divorced from a couple of times throughout my day. That's just a matter of fact in my life. I use this throughout my day because they can crop up. And when I see them in the morning, when I take this out and I do this practice on awakening, shortly after I get up, I actually do again write, because when I can see my self-pity, when I can see the dishonesty, the self-seeking, like when the self-pity is looked at, it kind of goes like, okay, I can see how that could be dishonest. I can see how that can be self-seeking. And like, I can see a lot. And like, when I can see a lot, I'm aware to it. So it doesn't become my motivation. It doesn't become my action. Again, I'm a work in progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. And again, my thought life, that indicates again to me that line on the people who rose above their problems. And like, I can live with my, like, that's all where the action is in my thought life, because any action is born out of thought. So my thought life is placed on a higher plane, and I'm not clear of wrong motives. So I'm pretty um aware of these things in myself when I start in the morning, if I, when I have them. Um, and then in thinking about my day, I'm still there doing it. I'm thinking these things in my day that might crop up that I'm uncertain about. Perhaps it's helping another alcoholic, perhaps it's applying for that job, perhaps it's, in my marriage, perhaps it's with a family member, whatever the case may be. Here's a prayer. I ask God for inspiration, intuitive thought or decision. I relax and take it easy. And like, it says I relax and take it easy, but I must ask first. So I'm not trying to figure out, I can't figure out how to solve any of these things that may be on my, maybe be the plans for the day. I'm asking the power to give me the inspiration, intuitive thought or decision. I literally take that moment and kind of center my thinking on asking the power these things that may come up in my day that I'm uncertain about or I don't know. And the right answers come after I've tried this for a while. So it's gonna keep taking time to do this, but they will come. They will come. And usually what I find is, you know, the more I'm in the moment and the more I'm, working step 10 and connecting with the consciousness, the power, then I'm going to get the inspiration, the intuitive thought, or the decision. And it's literally taking the moment and dropping into the awareness, dropping into the now. May I find you now, God, may I find you now, the power of your understanding. And in that moment, I can ask. So, and it goes on to say in 87, again, what used to be the hunch, the occasion, inspiration gradually becomes a working part of my mind. Yeah, God gave us brains to use. And it becomes part of my working mind, but I must do it. It takes time and I must do it. And it talks about being still in experience and having just made conscious contact with God is not probable that I'm going to be inspired all times. No, it's not. But I keep doing it. Like I've just entered the word of the Spirit. It takes time. Like how many years ago since this book was wrote? 88, 89, and it still says that. We might pay for this presumption, all sorts of absurd actions and ideas. So what I've also learned is, with my step 10 throughout the day, if something does crop up and if I don't owe an amends or an apology, it's in that moment I can correct my thinking, correct course, and then bring it to my inventory at night. So I'm not stopping in the middle of the day. I'm getting realigned, like thy will be done, thy will be done, thy will be done, back into, okay, remove whatever it is, and we're back into the stream of life. We're back into the flow. And again, our thinking will, as time passes, be more and more in the plane of inspiration. I come to rely upon it. I give time, but I must do it. And it says we usually conclude the period of meditation with a prayer that we be shown all through the day what our next step is to be, that we be given whatever we need to take care of such problems. And, we see this word meditation and on this paragraph, and we're concluding something. It's the careful contemplation, the mindful exercise that we've did so far up to this point, this thinking about our day, the asking as well with the prayers. And, I do take silent time also with this practice, and I couldn't knock it until I tried it. I tried a lot of resources through apps for that, kind of sitting with the power. But again, like I really love Bill's experience, his personal spiritual awakening, spiritual experience with the power of his understanding. He talks about I was to sit quietly when in doubt, asking only for directions strength me, my problems as he would have me. So just like what Bill Wilson did, I tried to do the same. And I love the silence today. Oh my gosh. I love to do nothing but be in the silence. To me, that's an activity. But anyway, that's off topic. And so that we would be given whatever we need to take care of such problems. So whatever that prayer is at the end of this meditation is up to us to decide. They've given us plenty of prayers up to this point to be divorced from self-pity, to direct our thinking, self-pity, dishonest, self-seeking motives, to ask for the inspiration, intuitive thought or decision. I have a right few prayers alone in my day to work with when I'm reading and using these prayers in 86 to 88. And I'm asking especially another prayer from self-will, and to make no requests for myself only. I'm careful never to pray for my own selfish ends. Again, like Bill states on 13, except if it will be useful to others. We waste a lot of time doing that. It doesn't work, and I can easily see why. Again, when I'm asking in the silence with the power, there is some stuff, true learning in step 11 and a lot in step 10, like the clearing of the motives in step 10, the clearing out and the filling up in step 11. There's a lot that I learned. And there's some things that, there's not some things, there's everything that I need to bring to the power to get the answers, because what is being shown to me is like no human power can relieve my alcoholism. The book states it, but my sponsor doesn't have the answer for anything that may be going on in my life. So I bring it into meditation. I bring it into prayer, and a lot of growth has really came for me. Like we hear it is like the answers will come if your own house is in order. I'm taking it out of context. I understand that. But that is so true. That is so true. That has been my experience. I've got a lot of, you know, nourishing from this step where the answers have come for issues in my life that I didn't know what to do or where to turn to, but they came through prayer and meditation, the guidance. And of course, how can I be more useful to others? How can I be more helpful to others? If circumstances warrant, we ask our wives or friends who join us in morning meditation. If you belong to religious domination, which requires a definite morning devotion, we attend that also. If not members of religious bodies, we sometimes select and memorize a few set prayers which emphasize the principles we've been discussing. There are many helpful books also. Suggestions about these may be obtained from one's priest, minister, rabbi. Be quick to see religious people are right, make use of what they offer. I love this. I love this paragraph. And okay, we can't knock it until we try it, but we don't have to. We don't have to, if we don't want to, get suggestions from priest, minister, rabbi. But I would highly recommend what the book says, to go and to look at those spiritual leaders, those perhaps religious bodies, to really grow this understanding or lack of understanding for me of the power. It has been so nourishing. And I don't want to give out, because it's recorded, and I respect tradition 10. I'm not going to go into it, but there is an abundance of books. There's an abundance of these, you know, religious bodies, these leaders that we can seek out. And the book tells us to do. And like, all I know from my own experiences, like, I sold myself short when I didn't. That's all I'll say about that. And I did have this experience also. Hard and I used to do this in the mornings, but our schedules change where we don't do it together, and that's okay. And you know, I also find it's where I'm at the stage where I need the personal time with this God of my understanding, because it's a relationship. I have to spend the time with the pair. And what was very important for me to hear, I did a lot of mechanics until I got to step 11. But what was very important for me to hear was that, Cathy, the number one relationship in your life is with God. I'd heard it before, but not until it was told to me when I got here, my feet was held to the fire, did I really start to take to listen, to hear, not even listen, to hear that it was, which means my actions must demonstrate it. And it is. And I love the line, be quick to see where religious people are right. And I heard a speaker talk about this, and it changed my view on that line. Be quick to see where they are right, not be quick to see how they're right. But there's a lot of denominations, you know, that have a logical idea what life is all about. Maybe some of the things that I can look at what they're saying are right with me. I'm not saying I have to get them all. I just have to be quick to see where they are right, not when they are right. And make use, as the book says, of what they offer. And this is the third meditation. And perhaps sometimes the forgetful one for me, which is as I go through the day, I pause when agitated or doubtful. Gosh, there is so much power in the pause as we know it. You know, it takes about a minute and a half, maybe a little bit more or less, but that's how I estimate it for any emotional disturbance or anything in me to calm down, where I can literally come back into the breath if I just close my eyes or keep them open and pause. That disturbance even to self out, so I'm not reacting on the emotional disturbance. And when I'm agitated or doubtful, sometimes I forget, but I just feel I forget those two words, agitated or doubtful, but I just know I'm off course and I'll pause. Yeah, I heard someone else talk about when I'm doubtful can be hard. Yeah, it can, because sometimes I think that, we're in this, God, we got this, what's next? Instead of slowing down and having that pause. Because my actions are going to be resembling sanity, like it talks about in regards to alcohol and PGD4. Like, I am not going to be able to practice the step 10 or the step 11. I've come to know this out of pain when I'm running and rushing. I need to practice these things in the moment and in the present for them to be able to be practiced and, of course, to be able to work them. So I ask then, there's another prayer for the right thought or action. I constantly remind myself I'm no longer running the show. Humbly saying to myself many times each day that I will be done. And, there's the meditation, there's the prayer. Like, there's the third one. The first one's at night. It's full of meditation, full of prayer. The second one's in the morning, full of meditation, full of prayer, I beg your pardon. And the third one is throughout my day. And that I am no longer running the show. That for me is a huge relief, because I'm not going to lie to you. Sometimes I
Did Cathy drop?
I think she froze.
Cathy, you froze.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was just something at my end or if everybody was experiencing it.
It happened right when she was talking about she's not in control anymore. I don't know if that's just coincidence or not, but
heard that. And, at that, I'm pretty much done. So that's all I got. Thanks, Steve. Thank you all. It's good to see you.
Thank you.